Hey guys, wanted to go ahead and go over everyday carry items and to go from there. Basically what I'm going to do is going to do a subjective tier list. Whether I love it, I like it, I think it's okay, I dislike it, I hate it, or cannot be fairly compared. I'm also going to add another category on the side here called I haven't been using it much, right? So yeah, please note this is going to be really frustrating for most people who are into EDC because you'll start to realize I'm not really much of a tools person. I just collect it because I think it's cool. So just please keep that accordingly. But what I'm going to do is actually tell you in each category my thoughts regarding each and every one of these things. Like what are the ones I use the most? What are the ones I use the least? And why? So yeah, let's get right into it. We'll start with multi-tools and pocket knife. Well, we'll start with multi-tools, okay? So this is the Leatherman style PS. So I look at this kind of like the Leatherman Squirt, where it's actually the tools in there are okay, a little bit dainty, I would say. You know what I mean? So and this is actually discontinued. So to be honest with you, I haven't been using this as much. But I would say this one, I would say it's okay. So I would rank this one a grade of it's okay. This one, okay? This is the Leatherman Squirt. I love this item. I'm really sad this was actually discontinued. And so I actually have a few of these. So I would say I love this tool. I like that it's so compact. But the key difference between this and the Gerber dime is that the tools are more, the way they come out, it's a lot more smooth. And it's much more, I would say, intuitive. Whereas this is more clunky and it feels like everything's just not as well made, right? So where I would say the Squirt PS4, I would say I love it. I would say the Gerber dime, I would say it's okay. The Gerber dime would be a lot better if it wasn't Gerber, right? Basically, if the tools inside were sturdier and stronger, and if they made it not so much of a damn hassle to take out the tools you need. That being said, you can adjust it by adjusting the screw and everything like that, but that doesn't excuse the fact that every Squirt PS4 is a lot easier to use compared to this tool. And I would actually argue these days they have they have these Chinese knockoffs, which are pretty much almost kind of like the Squirt PS4, like the Next tool, some of the other ones. Those are, in my opinion, at the point where they are better than a Gerber dime, right? So that's how I would rank that. This is the Leatherman Curl. So, the funny thing is that I actually thought I would actually love this. But what I've come to realize is that it's still a little too bulky for me. So I thought in general, and this is where, again, you're going to start to realize I'm not a trades person. I'm not a tools person. I'm just an office guy in a freaking office, just tinkering around with tools. This is bulky, no matter what. I don't like something like this in my pocket. And so, in actuality, the tool that I actually keep in my pocket is actually the Victorinox Rambler. This is the one I use the most. But at the end of the day, the problem is that, and I'm going to tell you why this philosophy doesn't make sense, at least on your end. It won't make sense, but for me, it makes a whole lot of sense. If I'm just walking around, I don't want something big in my pocket. But at the same time, if I need a tool, then I'm going to go grab a real tool that's actually like really good at doing the job. If I need this, I have a little, I have something I can get, or I can get better pliers. I can go ahead and get some, Kinefix pliers that are all going to be basically better than this item. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I think the whole point of it is kind of like what most tradespeople have. It's like you need something on hand, like a magnum on the side of your hand. Side of your pocket, you always have at all times, but I never have that urgency. And so if I feel like I don't have that urgency, then I don't really need this, is what I'm saying. So I know that doesn't make sense, but this is my video. This is my philosophy, right? This is the Gerber Slim Drive. Dude, this is almost a perfect multi-tool, at least for me. Because you know why? This has a bit driver right here, and then it's got a knife. And dude, that's it. But the problem is that this is not locking. It would have been so cool if there was some kind of contraption, maybe something like a slight little slit here, where something comes in and locks that in so that it stays locked. And it's such a shame, because if it was for that, this would probably be easily my best and most favorite multi-tool of all time. That's all I want. I just want a bit driver like this, that's this sleek, with a knife. And that's all I want, because that actually makes a whole lot of sense for me. You know what I mean? So I would say I love it, but it's just too bad. It would have been the perfect multi-tool. And the truth is I don't use this because this is not locking. You know what I mean? Leatherman Squirt or Juice. This is no longer made. I like it, you know? It's too bad they don't make any more of these. I don't love it, but I like it. This is the Big Idea Design bit inline. Dude, I love this thing. This is useful. Even today, I would say of all the tools that I've seen from Big Idea Design, like this one is actually really useful. It's really useful. I really love this tool. I absolutely love it. This is actually easily one of my favorite tools from Big Idea Design. Initially, I was thinking, oh, it's all hype. But now I'm like, no, this is actually legit. This is a really good tool. This is the SOG Power Pint. Okay, so I'm going to say something a little bit controversial, but here we go. The only thing that I really like about this tool is just its pliers. But the thing is, the rest of their tools on the side, these tools suck. Like, these tools are garbage on the side. They're really made out of chintzy, like really cheap material, and they're crap. Now, people will say, oh, but it's got a bit driver at the end. You know, the thing is, it's not that great. You know, people are thinking, oh, well, I could do this. I could pop that on. And no, actually, in reality, I'm talking like actual reality, you're not going to do this. This is actually not, you're going to actually go for a dedicated setup, which I'll show you on the side later, that is better than this. So at the end of the day, the only real redeeming factor of this is actually the pliers. This is, I think this is just the Victorinox Classic. This, I would say, I mean, this is a classic. It's really great. I like it. But I still like the Victorinox Rambler a lot more, which is my primary. And the reason is because this also comes with a screwdriver tip and a bottle opener. But this little screwdriver tip opens up almost everything. It really is weird. It's a really good screwdriver. So it's one of my favorite multi-tools. Okay, this is the Volpez something. So I thought this was going to be basically a better Victorinox Rambler. But the scissors are not as good as on here. So that kind of defeats the purpose. Like the scissors on here, they're not as good as the ones on this. And that's another thing I want to say is that the scissors on the Victorinox Rambler are really, really good. And so this is actually not an improvement. And plus it feels a little thicker. So I just stuck with the Rambler. This is the Leatherman Skeletal. Now this is what's going to be funny and people will find this hilarious. This is actually considered one of the more sleeker multi-tools by Leatherman. It's still bulky to me. It's still just a big clunker to me. So I don't really care for it, you know. So I would just say it's okay for me. This is the Leatherman Bolster. Again, it's still a little bit clunky for me, you know. It's and it's also functionality-wise not quite as good as the Curl or whatever. But I would still say it's okay. All right, so here's the Leatherman Micra, and then here is the next tool SO1. So the Leatherman Micra, I think it's okay. The issue with the Leatherman Micra is that while it is a nice sleek tool, the scissors actually are not very good. However, this one is good. The Leatherman the next tool SL1, which is basically a Chinese knockoff, this scissor on here is very good. Like it's very, very good. So this, I would say I like it. Okay, so as you can see, the multi-tool I love the most is this one. This is the Victorinox Rambler. I love this one because it has everything I need and nothing more, you know, because I'm not much about bulk, right? So there's that. This is the Victorinox Walker. Now this is going to be kind of a surprise to folks, but what this multi-tool has is just basically a big knife, and then you have right here, you have a saw, and that's it. You don't have anything else. I love this tool. Sometimes I feel like that's all you need. You know, I love it because I don't ever need a saw. But if I'm gonna get a saw, I want it in a small package. You know, something I just can grab. But I don't need a big ass funking huge ass saw all the time. You know, but it would be handy to have in a small little package. And I don't want a big, huge saw on like a big, like massive multi-tool. You know what I mean? Like often what happens is you'll see saws that are attached to big multi-tools, and so you're carrying this big amount of bulk just for this one functionality you may need like once in a blue moon. Like for me, I'm not cutting wood every day. You know what I mean? So I just like that it's, in one tiny package if I need it. You know what I mean? But aside from that, I don't need it. Right? This is the Victorinox something. It basically is a Rambler. So the way I look at it is, well, I already have a Rambler and I got it in black, and I basically paid more to get it in black. But this, if I want to get a black version of that, it's not better. It's just, but it has a pen, which is like pretty cool. So in my wallet, I actually have a pen right here, and it looks like this. and like that, right? So it's not like I actually, but then if you wanted a pen inside of that, then, you know, you'd go that route. But for me, I just have this in my chum's wallet, and that's that, right? So there's that. Okay, this is the Leatherman mini tool. Dude, I love this tool. I love it. So I wish Leatherman kind of took this approach more, but basically this is pliers, but then you can also, it'll expand out to larger pliers, right? So it goes like that. This is an awesome tool. I dig it, man. I love it. So I definitely, I love this one. I love the Leatherman multi-tool. I wish Leatherman, I understand why they don't go with smaller tools. It's because they tend to break more. And so profit-wise, they're not making money. And a smaller tool is more likely to break over a span of 10 years than a larger tool, right? So that's why they probably don't go this route. Okay, so this is the Bit EDC drive or something like that. So this is actually conceptually cool, made by Big Idea Design, except that I began to realize it's actually just a really cool looking screwdriver. That's actually not that great of a screwdriver. Like, it's okay, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, this is my screwdriver of choice. So that's that. But it's cool looking. I mean, I'll give it that. But I'll definitely say that of the screwdriver tools, the bit inline, this is a much more useful tool by comparison. This is actually really good. You know what I mean? And it's pretty compact as needed, but it also, you know, you can get a crap ton of torque when needed. So that's my 2 cents regarding that. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and talk about bit drives. This is another one. So this is actually, so this is by Big Idea Design. The idea is that it's this compact, and then you pull that out, you get your bits that you want, and then you go ahead and put an extension on here, and what will happen is you basically have a screwdriver, or you can actually put this onto here, and you have a screwdriver, which is actually, in theory, that actually seems like a really good idea. Except, and this is more of a hot take, now that I've had this for a while, I realize that it's actually not good at any one thing. And I'll explain to you. This is a bit container. It's holding bits. The thing is, these are better for holding bits. You know what I mean? These are nice and compact. I can hold a whole bunch of double-sided bits as needed. This functionally, I can hold a lot more bits than what's in here. Even something as simple as this right here from the Steinwell bits. To me, I'm covered. That's everything I pretty much need, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a way where I can get way more bits in a smaller package compared to this. But then when you compare it to as a function of a screwdriver, and you compare it like, well, how is it as a screwdriver? Well, the problem is, look at the shape. It's like this, and it's like this, and you're holding your hand. It's very awkward. And I'll soon go over screwdrivers right here on the side really soon. But as a screwdriver, there are far better tools that you can use. You know, I would say, you know, that, again, I keep pulling it up here, but, you know, I like the lollipop driver a lot more. I like something like this a lot more. I like something like, you know, something like the toe peak and this a lot more. This is a lot more useful to me. I can just go pop that on. That's more useful to me than something like this, you know? Even something like, you know, like I said, the Leatherman, I mean, I find these tools a lot more useful to me than this, which actually is an awkward shape, in my opinion, from that point, right? So that's my thoughts regarding that. Okay, here is the Pioneer X by Victorinox. So the funny thing is, I thought I actually would use this more. And what I realized is it's just again, it's too bulky. It's not quite my cup of tea. And I just feel like, no, I don't regret buying it. You know, I think this is actually good to keep in a glove compartment in a car because it has like, you know, like some of the tools that you might need, but I just feel like it's a little bit too clunky for me. Like I wouldn't carry this around in a pocket. And then there's also the Victorinox Compact. Now the funny thing is, I thought I would actually like this tool as well. But the thing is, for me, I find many of the tools in here very useless. Like not useless. I don't find myself finding it useful. So a lot of people like this tool. If I had my way, I'd ask for it to be removed. Like I wish this was not in the tool and make the tool lighter for me. You know, I like the knife. It's a bigger knife than what I have. But aside from that, when I really look at it, what else do you have? Then you've got, you know, the can opener, which I don't really, you know, you've got this. But then at the end of the day, I'm just like I don't really care much for it. You know, I feel like I would still stick with my Victorinox Rambler at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So even this doesn't do it for me. And yeah, so there's that. Okay. next, let's go over flashlights, okay? And my philosophy regarding flashlights. So this will be brief because I'll tell you which flashlights I like and which ones I don't. But it'll just tell you briefly, and it all makes sense. I hate flashlights like this. This is like my worst type of flashlight, and I'll tell you why. What is the difference between this and this? This is one hand, one push. What is this? Two hands. You have to use two hands, and you have to turn. How many turns are you doing? And then you eventually get to where you want. This is not as good. So I don't really like these kind of flashlights. The other kind of flashlight I don't like is, I call it contra button pushing flashlights. So
up, up, down, down, left, right, BA.
I actually thought that I would like this flashlight, but I don't. And I actually got rid of many flashlights that are like this. I feel like with flashlights, you should be able to give it to a grandma or a mom or a kid that's 5 years old and be like, this is how the flashlight works. If you have to say, hold down for 5 seconds, then press the left and push the right button, you failed. Throw that in the trash. That's not good. What you want, or what I want, is something simple. On, off, right? That's all I want. So, that being said, I obviously dislike this one. I thought I would like it, but I don't like this flashlight because I don't like where you have to push anything where you have to push anything down for seconds. I don't like that. Again, I don't like this flashlight either. This is a twisteroo. You know what I mean? You got to go like this. You have to use two hands to use it. That's not efficient. Again, I much prefer flashlights that are one click, one on, one off. You know what I mean? So yeah, obviously I like these flashlights because these are one click, one off. This is like the same thing. One button push, one button off. One button, like, this is better too. I like that. This is kind of the same thing. It just one button on, one button off. That's all I want. Like, that's what I prefer with flashlights. So these are the Olight Mini. What I like about these is just, although it does require two hands, you don't have to twist. So it just goes like that. You know what I mean? Although theoretically, you could do this in one hand too. You just go like that. You know what I mean? But I like how compact that is and how tiny that is. So these are one of my favorite flashlights, which is why I've bought a few multiples of these. All right, next category, what I want to talk about are bit drivers and primary screwdrivers, and to go from there. Okay, so, all right, so my primary sort of tool I use for, I would say, precision is this right here. I love this one a lot, but this is a primary, as in, like, this is obviously not as portable, but I use this probably the most because 90% of the time, I'm at home, I need to put something together, and it's right there. I don't have to get something tiny, right? So I'll go for this. On the same notion, another primary that I have is the Wera ToolCheck Plus. I absolutely love this, and I would say I use this probably close to 90% of the time. This is my primary. Now I'm going to talk about one I don't use. I do have this right here, but I actually don't use this. Even though it's actually one of the most highest ranked tools by Project Farm, I never use it because I find in general, I can get something done that's this small. Like, in other words, I don't necessarily have to have this. This will usually get the job done for me. I don't necessarily need to get and grab this. You know what I mean? But look at the size difference. But I find, and if I need a little bit more reach, then I'll just do something maybe like this, where I grab this, and I grab something like this. And in my opinion, that gives me enough torque. I don't necessarily have to go and grab something like this. So I find, at least for me, I never use this, but I keep it around. But this gets very low usage, right? These tools, and I want to mention them because they're a set of 3. So these are by Weha. They're basically the Go kit. For some reason or another, I never use these. These are, although I think they're very nice and sleek, but I find that I just have more options. You know, I don't really need to use these. I use other things instead. So these usually stay actually underneath, kind of like way in the bottom, like in my cabinets. They're like way in the bottom. I never use them, but you know, they are good. It's just that I have other things that I would say makes those redundant. Okay, now let's talk about bit drivers and things like that. So, okay, these are PB Swiss blocks. These are awesome. In fact, I like them a lot, so I bought a few of them. These are just for holding bits, but what I like is you can actually see all the bits up front. And because some bits will hide everything and you just kind of look, but you can see just right away. I'm like, okay. And especially for double-sided bits, this is really, really useful. So I would say these are great. I'm going to move these to the side to clear space out. These are Leatherman bits. I actually don't like these as much because I find that the bits round off very easily and they're not very good at the job, and I much prefer having actual bits instead. The other problem is that if you lose a bit, you're screwed. You have to buy the whole set again. You know, I just feel like that's not as useful for me. So I don't really care much for these kind of bits. Moving that to the side, these are Steinwell bits. These are awesome because I feel like this covers just about everything I need, at least for my case, and it's super compact. So I love these. Obviously, I adore, you know, in this case, Weha double-sided bits. These are extremely useful. This covers you for everything. And now I kind of want to talk about something kind of a little bit controversial, but, you know, maybe this shows I don't understand much about tools, but I'm just trying to make a point here. You know, sometimes you'll see big tools like this where you use these for whatever, but, you know, the bits actually are actually right here. Like for what I need, they're right here, or they're right here. You know what I mean? So you don't need to have this, in my opinion. Like you can have, you know, the end bits. And I never ever had to have something this big before. Usually most are like these ones right here on the right, and you're covered in here, you know, especially for like IKEA things, right? So that's my thoughts regarding that. Okay, so now that I'm just going to slowly clear this out. So now we're coming down to this category here. Okay, these are the Weha Centro bits. I mean, so the thing that's cool about this, it's funny because initially I didn't like it, but I've come to respect it and like it a lot. So these, whatever sticks in here, that shit ain't coming out. This is extremely I mean, it's really hard to take it out. Like basically, and these are actually intended for Weha double-sided bits. So if you ever want to get something where you're going to get something that will never come out, and basically it's very, very secure, especially with Weha double-sided bits, you go ahead and put on one of these, like this, boom. You know, like you lock that in, that thing ain't coming out. Then you pair that with something like this, where, you know, in this case, just really quickly, let me just take it out. You pair that with something like this, you know, that ain't coming out. And you go like that, now you got torque. You know what I mean? And now that's a Weha double-sided bit. So that's kind of cool because that means you can basically, you have something like this. This is everything. You know, you got these are double-sided. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You got like 18, you have 18 screwdrivers and basically all this, and that is very secure. You know, so I definitely like this combo right here. This is a Leatherman ratchet. Now the funny thing is, I actually find that I don't know, there's something about the way it's done. Sometimes it goes loose and it goes the other way, so I don't find it as useful, oddly enough. And I find, oddly enough, instead, I much rather prefer something like this that also is a ratchet, where I can ratchet one way or the other. But the toe peak driver, I find, in tandem with this tool, is much more useful for me. So I much prefer this instead. This is the Wera 813R. I like this. I actually sometimes use this alongside for bits as well, so I like this a lot. Now, while I don't recommend it, but for the most part, I have done it. This is actually kind of compatible with double-sided bits, like kinda. You know, it's a little shaky, but it will work. And the reason is because the magnet is quite strong. So as you can see, I can swap out that side. It's because the magnet is strong enough, and it'll get the job done. It's not a clean fit, but it'll get the job done. This is some tool that came with 7-Eleven. So the concept of this is that basically you could add sockets on here, and then you go like this, and then you could, you could add sockets there, and here would also take like hex N bits right here. I just found I never really used it, so this was not as useful for me. This is more to talk about these kind of bits. So the irony is that I thought this would be really awesome, and I still keep it because it might be useful. Like, basically the concept is that these are tiny, and these are like, you could put a bit in here and you get some like a little bit of torque in there, or you could put it right here, or you could actually connect it here and get a T-wrench sort of setup. But the thing is, actually, hold on, let me just make sure I match this in here. So you get torque like this, but the thing is, actually, in actuality, it's not good to have something this small. It's actually not as practical. And so at the end of the day, I found myself never using these. Or maybe for like an Altoids kit, I might use it, which I'll never use pretty much. But at the end of the day, I still keep coming out to this guy. This is like a lot more, it's just much more ergonomic, and it makes a lot more sense. So that's my 2 cents regarding, this is easily my favorite bit driver. This is the Victorinox something. I never I bought it because I thought it'd be useful, but at the end of the day, I still prefer this a lot more. This is the James Cash something screwdriver. So this is a philosophy regarding me and pen type sort of screwdrivers. See, I think those are actually not good, and this is a good example of it, but I still keep it. I don't like something where, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to get your bits? You go like this, you open it up, then you got to go through, then you got to sift out what bits you want, then you got to put it back, then you got to close this up, and then you got to put the bit on top. That's dumb. That's freaking dumb, dude. That's stupid. How many steps is that? You know, I want something where it's just like, okay, boom, step 1, how many bits? This is what I need. Step 2, boom, pop that in there. I'm done. That's it. Why do I need to, you know, take something out, go like this, go like that? That's dumb. You know, I think that's just not smart. You know what I mean? All right, so now we're just going through the last of the batch and to go from there. So for scissors, there's these types of scissors here. So what I find is actually the Klein electrician scissors. While these are very strong and very powerful, these are very, very ergonomically bad for my particular thumbs. I find them very painful. So I actually just find that Olfa scissors are actually much more comfortable, and in many ways not quite as, like, this can't open a quarter like this can, but it gets the job for like everything I needed to do. For smaller scissors, I actually find that these are actually kind of useful. These are Westcott's something. I forget what it is. These are really good. And then when I'm traveling overseas and you don't want something with a sharp blade, I always bring this around for scissors. So these are what I use. In terms of my box cutter of choice, I use this. This is the Slice 5105 or something like that. I have like tons of these. I probably bought like 7 of these. These are so awesome. What I recommend is buying the replacement blades so that you can get the more sharper variant on here. But these are really useful. Obviously for pliers, I really like Kinepix pliers. And then I find in general for, I don't really use, prybars as much. But of all the prybars I have, I find that these 2 are the most useful. So I use this one a lot for when I need a pry bar, which I bought for like $7. And then this is actually meant for, like, it's extremely like strong. It's like really, really strong. You know what I mean? It's like titanium, but I like it's very thin sloped here, so you can definitely get into, you know, small spots. It's very, very, very strong, very stuff. This is actually, get the titanium version of that. Now, as for tools I don't use as much, I'm going to go ahead and move them here on this category. This goes to show how much I'm not much of a handy person. So I bought this because it was nice and compact, but I never really use a leveler. This is a handsaw, but I never use a handsaw, but I just keep it around. This is paracord. I mean, I never really use paracord. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, it's like, sometimes I view it as like it's a solution to a problem that I don't have. You know what I mean? But I keep it around, but I don't actually really use paracord. This is going to make many people very, very upset and angry. So I think this is actually a really good knife sharpener, and I have quite a few knife sharpeners in the house. What's really cool about this one is that, you know, it's like this. It's really good. It's actually really nice and sleek. And then on the end, you have this here. So the problem is, and I'm not saying this, I'm actually dead serious. I have so many knives, and I don't use knives that often, so they never get dull. So I don't really use that. This, I think is awesome conceptually, where it's for sockets. It's sockets that are super compact, but like I never use sockets as much. I don't know, maybe if I need to bust open a nut or whatever, well, that didn't sound right. I just use Kinepix. You know what I mean? This will get the job done. It'll open it up and, like, you know, and if I want it to be dainty or whatever, then I'll use something like this, but I don't really feel like I need to use this per se, right? But if I do need to, I mean, I do have the option. This is a Purdy something. It was meant, I remember I was asking a lot of, and I was reading on, and people were saying that a painter's tool would be really useful for like a lot of things. And so I bought like the most sleekest painter's tool I could think of, which is this one. It's the painter's folding one. Except I realized I never use this because I don't paint and I'm not in construction. You know what I mean? So it's not something I really use. This is really cool tweezers. Basically just, they're really, really cool, but I never use tweezers really, you know, like it's not like I'm like having wood splinters all the time. And then this is a measuring for, like, someday I may use this, you know, basically for measuring like large rooms and things like that. But like, I've never used this ever since, but I mean, I have the option, but I don't really use it all that often. So, Yeah, because what I probably use more often than not is actually this one right here. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that explains everything, and we'll go from there.